What's going on, guys? A big welcome to you all to our channel. We are Team Crushing the Meta, and you're here with D-Boy. I'm here for you guys with the deck profile on the Turbo Spike build. I call this the balanced Turbo Spike because it kind of has two reasons why it's called balance. First of all, it balances between aggro and turbo, and second of all, it balances between having combo pieces and vanillas. So this deck actually does play the Zazan and the Cyclone and some vanillas in it, because in the last deck profile that we did on our channel and even the video before that, we explained on which premium decks you could milk for Spike Brothers. And the first deck that you guys wanted to see was the Aggro Spike. We did that already on our channel. That deck actually does not play any vanillas, or the vanilla mechanic doesn't really need them. So this deck does. In my opinion, there are two builds, or actually three builds that you could make with the Turbo, with the GB8. One will be full out vanilla. That one I didn't like at all. It just felt just plain and it didn't need a lot of skill to play, and it wasn't as good as the other two. And the other two are this one, which is a balance between vanillas and non-vanilla cards, so combo pieces and vanillas, and the last one is a full out combo cards without the whole vanilla mechanic. So with all of the hate that this little guy is getting from the community, which I understand 100%, I didn't say I agree with it or I'm defending him, just like I do see the combo potential that this guy is doing, and it's like making the game a little bit unhealthy. As long as we see results, and Bushi will definitely take the measure into considerations, and they will like put him maybe at 2 or at 1, or we'll wait and see, maybe he gets an errata, but we will just have to wait and see. Till then, we could check what we could already build decks with him and see how good this card actually is. And this card in this deck means multiple things. Like having the GB1 in the early game could give you the opportunity to have one less G-Guards in hand and could still potentially go to the GB8. So let me explain that, because that's actually the core when it comes to the GB8. If you're playing the GB8 of Spike and you are going first, then the first thing you need is when you get to your when you get to your grade 3 turn, right? And then your opponent will go for his first stride. What you want to do is you need 4 heals in hand. If you don't have the 4 heals, then you cannot go GB8 first turn, so you have to give them 2 strides. So if you have the 4 heals in hand, what you want to do is you want to G-Guard first, so G-Guard once on the first attack. And after that, you need to G-Guard 3 times with the flip G-Guard to flip 3 more G-Guards, right? If you do that, then you end up with GB7, which means you could get to your GB8 right away. So the thing is, the weaknesses of this combo is that you need to G-Guard once at the first attack. You need to G-Guard once. You could not G-Guard twice, because if you do that, you will end up having 3 G-Guards in your G-Zone, which means that you could only activate the 1 more flip G-Guard. And with that, you end up with GB5, which means that you cannot go GB8 right away. You need 1 stride between that. So what you want to do is you have to G-Guard once to get GB1, and then use second G-Guard, flip, third G-Guard, flip, fourth G-Guard, flip. And all of these need to be at the same attack. If not, then you will end up with having enough G-Guards in your G-Zone that you cannot G-Guard anymore. What does Zazan mean, or what does the GB1 mean if you get that and you go first? That means that if you have 3 G-Guards in hand, you could go GB8 right away. But also, you don't have to use those G-Guards in the same attack, because on the first attack, you could use 1 flip G-Guard to flip something face up from your G-Zone. And then on the second attack, you have to use 2 G-Guards right away to flip, and again, flip. And then you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 GB8 right again. So the GB1 helps you to get the GB8. If you have GB2 in the early game, doesn't really do much. You still need 3 G-Guards, but you would have to, or you could use 1 less flip G-Guard, and you could also divide them on different attacks. So that's the thing. What happens if you go second? If you go second, you could still use the Zazan to get you that GB1, right? Because let's say that you go second and you have still already had the one flip in your G zone. Then now if you get to your let's say Violence Ace and you flip one more face-up card from your G zone, then you end up having 2 cards face up in your G zone, which means you could draw 2. If you don't have Counterblast or you want more Clay Elementals, you could still do Merendol and then flip the second Cyclone. From this moment on, you only need 2 G guards to get your GB8 because you already have GB3, which means that you could do flip and another flip, and you already have the GB7 yet again. So it's actually pretty easy to get to the GB8 as long as you have 1 GB and you will need 1 less heal in your hand. All of that, you still need to play the deck that the deck wants you to play it, which means that the deck actually rushes more. It kind of still need to run those vanillas, which you are taking out a lot of your combo pieces, who makes the deck very strong. Without Spike Bouncer, without Burrow, the deck actually becomes weaker. Maybe you will get to your GB8 faster, but the deck does become weaker. So what do we need to do to still make the deck strong, but also play the mechanic, or let's say the vanilla mechanic? Well, what we need to do is we need to find the right balance between having, let's say, those cards in your deck, but still having the right combo pieces. So during this deck profile, I will explain to you guys the right amount for me of the vanilla cards and the cards that you could not take out of your deck because they are very important, right? So let's first start with the grade 3 lineup and then go through the deck and explain to you guys what cards that you actually need in your deck, you need to keep in your deck. Okay, so first we have the grade 3 lineup, and we start with the 4 copies of Bad End Dragger. This is a very important card to still keep in the deck. Why? Because Bad End Dragger not only gives you markers, but he also is a very important Regard, because with his ability, the cost is a Counterblast 1 and putting one of your Regards back to your deck. That cost is actually very important. Not only he gets a crit and a 5k, but he puts one of your Regards back to your deck, which are cards like Wonder Boy or Tear. Those 2 cards, you could only put them back with Dragger or with Gun Wolf. So yeah, that's why Bad End Dragger is good. Also, when you ride on the top of the Bad End Dragger to get more markers, you still get the Bad End Dragger back to your Regard circle, which is a +1, but that's not all he does. He could get rid of cards like Honolly or some irritating interceptors or something that you want to get rid from your opponent's field. So that's good. Then we get to Gunwolf. Gunwolf actually acts in the same way, but only during your GB8 turn. What he does is he pretty much could put all of those Regards you have on the field that you want back to your deck. He could put them back to your deck, and that makes this card very, very, very good. I normally would play Gunwolf at 2 in this deck, but the reason why I'm playing him at 1 is because of the aggro factor that the deck has, and that's when Bull Spike becomes in handy. Because Bull Spike works very good with Good End and Bad End, but also if you ride into Bull Spike first, you could actually rush your opponent a little bit more. Although you don't really have the soul when it comes to this deck, because you Soul Blast with Spike Bouncer, you Soul Blast with Zazan, but sometimes you still have some soul to use around, especially if you go Force 2. But usually this card is in here for the Bad End Dragger turn with Good End. And last but not least, we of course have the 4 copies of Jelly Beans. Jelly Beans is becoming even more important because he doesn't only search out your heals, but he also search out your Deadly Mountie. And Deadly Mountie is a vanilla card which you could use with Zazan. So all in all, the deck needs the right balance, and this is one of the cards that acts as 4 extra vanillas that you have in your deck, because when you draw into him, you could always exchange him with a heal or with a vanilla card. Okay. When we go to the grade 2 lineup, this is actually very simple. We play Spike Bouncer, and this is your main focus. He is the one who gives you a good early game. He's the one who gives you an amazing late game. This card is the heart and soul of this deck, and it's the card that gives you those pluses that you need. With your opponent rushing you, this is the card that gives you the advantage back. With having the counterblasts, this is a card that gets you those attacks during your GB8 turn. So Spike Bouncer keeping him at 4, and I ended up taking out Burrow because I find Spike Bouncer way, way, way better. And then for the other grade 2s, we play the 3-on-3, being 3 copies of Dudley Mounty, and then the 3 copies of any other vanilla from the V series grade 2s, because you have 2 different ones. You have this one, and I like tall or trail back. I like the art better, bombing trail back. But you could also make it like different. You could take out one of him and play out the 4th copy of Dudley Mounty if you need to for the consistency, and then you could like add 1-on-1. It's pretty much up to you to run it whatever or however you want it. But I ended up with doing 3-on-3 because I didn't feel that it was necessary to add in a 4th one. And the important thing is that of course this has 5k more shield, and in some games that does still make it different, but again, pretty much up to you. So those are the 6 vanillas we have in the deck. When we come to the grade 1 lineup, we start, let's say, with the vanillas. Why not? So we have 4 vanillas in the grade 1 lineup, and they are the 15k shield. This card is really good in this deck. While playing Spike Brothers, especially the Turbo deck, I sometimes have to G-guard for just 15k or 20k shield, because I just don't want to lose 2 or 3 cards from my hand. And while guarding with this card, it's actually so stupid that this card is just a 15k shield, something that we never had in Spike Brothers. Maybe in V with a grade 2, but never with a grade 1. And it's just like really, really good how good this card actually is in this deck. It's a shield value, it's just a vanilla you call to the field, and it gives you the opportunity to keep so much combo pieces in your hand. Then of course we add the 3 copies of Zazan. We only play 3. There is no reason to play a 4th one. As I said, in this deck he's like an extra, and this guy makes this deck actually more creative. He could be very good during your GB8 turn. You could call him in the early game to get the GB1. You could even sometimes, if you ended up having GB7 because something didn't flip, or you didn't have the right G-guards, or you G-guarded awkwardly, during your GB8 turn, you have only GB6. You still strike to your GB8 and you end up having GB7. His skill will not activate until you use this guy, and then his skill will activate again, and then you get GB8. So it's kind of interesting how this works very well in this deck, although you don't really have to rely too much on him. If you get him, you use him. If you don't, then you don't. Still, the deck doesn't really need him to function very well. During your GB8 deck during the GB8 turn, this card still is very, 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 very good, because you could still recall it to draw more and to flip more, and also to gain more power, but at the same time to plus on the field, because one of your baddest matchups is kind of Kagero, because Kagero could retire your field, and Spike Bouncer and this card could actually refill the field. So all in all, I think it's a great card to run in this deck, but it's not as toxic as it is in some other decks where like you could have an FTK. Your main focus is still the GB8, is still Herald 8, and with or without this card, the deck will function actually very well. And at the end of the video, I will explain to you guys what are the good things and the bad things when it comes to this deck, if you compare it to the GB8 deck without having Zazan in it. Then we run 3 copies of Tier 3 copies, and Wonder Boy at 3 copies. These 2 cards are important to play with your Spike Bouncer. The Wonder Boy, of course, could recycle the Spike Bouncer from the drop zone, and the Tier could give you the counter charges back. You could put these cards back to your deck with cards like Gunwolf and with cards like Good End Dragger. All in all, I think that playing 3-on-3 is really, really good. There are some differences between Wonder Boy and Big Blow Ted, and there is also some really nice synergy if you want to play the old Wonder Boy, which is Vanilla Boy, with this Wonder Boy, because like you could still activate his ability to go to Soul, and you could recall the old Wonder Boy to the field when you would have more power because of the Cyclone being flipped. Like, there are a lot of things that you could change around at this deck to make it even more interesting and even more fun to play. And as I said, it's really, really, really fun to play, which I didn't expect actually that from Vanillas. So we have the trigger lineup, which we run the 4 heals, Dudley heals, because we still play Jelly Beans, and we don't play Tempest in this deck. Because we don't play the order cards, there is no reason to go back and play Tiara. And if you want to play all out vanillas, then you could do that, but I don't really think that's a fun way to go about a deck that I enjoyed playing for so many years. For the triggers, the crits, I mean, we play 4 of the new crits. This card acts as a stride folder, and it's the reason why we don't play any stride folders anymore. This is the cards that made the huge impact when it comes to all of my deck lists, because the same as the draw PG, where they gave us the draw PG to have more space in our grade 1 lineup, we now have more space in our grade 1 lineup if you played stride folders in the past. And just like giving up a 15k shield to be able to stride is something that you have to choose, and playing the jelly beans, which always come back, that you could stride with, is also nice. But yeah, all in all, again, a very good card. Then we have the 4 draw PGs, again, because we play draws, why not? And to add into the vanilla count, we actually play the 4 copies of Linux. Right, for our starter, we actually had to take out the old Mega Trainer to add in the new Mega Trainer. Reasons are simple. If you ride into Zazan, then you need the soul. If you use Spike Bouncer, then you already Soul Blast. You're only 1 soul to be able to use Zazan in the early game, so pretty much you need that 1 soul. So you're already giving up a heal searcher to play this cute guy, right? And that's the conclusion that I will actually give you at the end of the video. Is it really worth it to play him in this deck? I'm just giving you the best deck list that I could have come up with that works with my playstyle. Again, you could change it out the way you wanted to, but you have to give up too much, and in this case you are giving up your old Mega Trainer to play this new Mega Trainer, because the old Mega Trainer just doesn't work in this deck. Having this means that you could also get the Quick Shield. Quick Shield is always nice. You could discard it, you could get rid of it for a G assist, you could do a lot of stuff with it. It's also nice to have that extra in there, and just the early draw is nice. Sometimes you draw into the heal or to the right combo piece, and yeah, I think it's like a nice change of deck list, right? So when we get to strides, let's first go through the strides, then come back and show you the G guards. We play the 3 copies of Cyclones. There is no reason to play 4. I did come sometimes to a situation where I needed a 4th one, or I could have flipped the 4th one. But still, I think 3 is more than enough, because we don't have anything else to take out, and we still play 6 G guards, so we don't want our G zone to look like only Create Elementals. Talking about Create Elementals, we still play the 1 copy of Merendol. Merendol acts very good if your opponent doesn't give you Counterblast, and that's why Merendol could still flip you something, which means you get to the right GB amount. We only play 1, which I normally play 2, because we have space for 2 Violence Ace. Violence Ace becomes even better now that Zazan flips something in the early game, because he could draw you more, and yeah, just having the defensive hand, especially in a rush format, is good. His second ability now is also more effective, because you could still rush your opponent back with keeping on hand. So it's like this and that at the same time. And that's the same when it comes to our new stride from the Premium Collection 2020. This card is also very good, because not only that he puts pressure on your opponent on keeping guarding, but he also draw you a card, and he flips stuff from your G zone face up. And sometimes you come to an awkward amount cards in your G zone, and this card will make it all better. But yeah, I think the most important reason why this card in this deck will my playtesting is the turn after your GB8. Whenever you get into your GB8 and your opponent will be having, like, let's say 4 or 5 damage, after that, if you survive their attacking turn, because they didn't really have much to go about, you need a second GB8. But sometimes you don't really have stuff in your deck to call with your GB8, and that's when this card becomes effective, because anything you draw and call will still be enough to destroy your opponent. Then we add in the 1 copy of Good End. No reason to play 2, 1 is more than enough. He works really good in this deck, and he just gives you more markers. He adds to that rush factor. He makes the deck more aggro when it needs to be aggro. And then we come to 2 of our last strides. First is the Formido. Formido is a good card to have. It's the sometimes if good first try to fill up the soul, but at the same time to get rid of some irritating Raggers that your opponent have or has. And also it gives you the free stride, which is something that you need against certain decks, like let's say Nobuttama. So Formido, in my opinion, a very important card to have in the deck, and you need him at 1. You don't need a second copy. Last but not least, and the most important stride in the whole deck is of course the Hard 8. This, what could I say? This card is and has won me so many games, and the deck actually focuses on him. Getting the opportunity to go into him, you will give your opponent hell by using that Spike Bouncer, the Tear, the Wonder Boy, the Gun Wolf, everything in the deck, the Zazan, the Vanillas who gets power, everything, calling and putting those jelly beans from your hand to the soul, meaning you could make your Gun Wolf active and then using Gun Wolf, and then after that soul blasting it with a Spike Bouncer, and then calling a Wonder Boy that you just put back with the Gun Wolf to put that Gun Wolf yet again back to your deck, attack with the Wonder Boy, have it in your soul, get Spike Bouncer, soul blast, and then do so many stuff, and then you could go back and use the same Gun Wolf to put those cards back to your deck. I mean, so many things to talk about. People think that this deck, whenever you go into him, it's game over, you win, and the reason is that there are so many combos that you could do when it comes to this card. This card makes actually this whole deck alive and also fun to play. People don't understand how fun this is until they play them themselves, and it's not that easy as it looks, but it's also rewarding whenever you keep playing this and you keep like making those combos. And yeah, it's just you can see how much passion I have in this, and it's just because the card is really good but also very effective. Also, the card is a little bit bullshit, which I said at the start of the set whenever this card came out. A lot of people didn't believe me, but now they see the results and they do. But is it an unfair card? It's still a GP8. But is it an unfair card? Yes, I think it is. Is it strong? Yes. Is it a sleeper deck? Sometimes this, sometimes not. But we do still see it at least to qualify towards once or twice each year. Alright, we get to the G-Guards, and actually the only thing we changed here is we play one less G-Guard. The reason we do that is that we don't really need the 7 G-Guards anymore, and we have to make space for our new Stride and for Cyclone. So this is the way that we play it, and the way that we played it, or I played it in the past, is I add one more copy of him to have the 7 G-Guards to Stride GB8 as a first Stride if you get the chance and you have the 4 heals on hand. But now, because we have the vanilla mechanic in the deck, we actually already get the GB1 early, so we don't really have to keep those 7 G-Guards in the deck anymore. Alright, that's actually how the deck looks like, and also my ideas behind the deck. I will do a separate video to talk about the combos, because there are a lot of combos we do in the deck, but let's recap and see how much vanillas we actually play. To go through the grade 1 lineup, we actually play 4 vanillas and only 3 Zazans, and in the grade 2 lineup, we play 6 vanillas and we play 4 Zazans, and in the grade 3 lineup, we play the 4 vanillas, being the jelly beans, who could actually search your other vanillas, and in the grade 0s, we play the draw trigger, being a vanilla. Okay, so this is 4, 8, 10, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So we actually play 18 vanillas in this deck, being cards like jelly beans, being cards that like you could search out. So 18 vanillas is, in my opinion, a good balanced amount. But again, you have some smart things to do about like getting the jelly beans, activating at the right timing before you get into the turn that you want to use his ass. And when I say we have 7 Zazans in this deck, is because you could still get the Spike Bouncer, call it, and you check the top 2 or top 3 to get into him. So you kind of playing more copies of him. And do you need the fourth one? Well, no, you don't, because you need to take out more combo pieces, more vanillas, and I just don't want that. And this felt to me like the right amount. So again, the deck actually functions really, really well with and without Zazan. So what's the good thing? Why do we run this guy? Why do we run the vanillas? And why do we have all of this in there? Because again, we are giving up too much. The cards that we are giving that like hurt the most is actually more copies of cards like Wonder Boy or Big Blow Ted, who give you the advantage, right? Because these cards gives you the like you could recycle the right combo pieces to put them back to your deck during that GBA turn, and if you don't have them, then you pretty much will have a less good GBA turn. But you also are sacrificing cards like Mayhem Tiger, which makes again your GBA turn better. That's not all. You're sacrificing the consistency of the deck, because you could not get the Bad End Dragger to your hand by searching it with cards like Death Flag Dragger and Deadly Mason. But that's not all. We are sacrificing one of our most important cards in the deck, which is the 4 copies of Burl. Burl actually gives you access to stronger attacks, draw more cards during the GBA turns. This card is very important, but we have to give up this as well. That's not all. We are giving up two more heal searchers from the deck. We have Vanilla, so we cannot play the second copies, and we have Zazan, so we could not play the starter being Mega Trainer. So all in all, again, a lot of cards you're giving up. You could not really play more tiers. I mean, you already play 3, and I would love to add the 4th one, but there's just no space. But that's all. You also do not play any Only. So you're taking out a lot of your 6k, so you could not undercut. The deck is not made to undercut. So yeah, a lot of things that you had to take out to put those vanillas in there, and all of these cards are important cards that makes the deck good and give the deck the winning strategies against a lot of other decks. So what do I think of this whole playing the vanillas or not playing the vanillas, and which deck is better? In my opinion, it depends on the format. Depends if you get into a rush format, more of a 0 damage format, more of decks that you don't want to give damage at all, or decks that you could afford giving damage to. Because this deck actually benefits from having Force 2 on the field, right? If you have Force 2, you could like benefit from that because you attack multiple times and you end up having like your GB8 turn with 1 or 2 Force 2 markers on the field, and that still could like make a huge difference. But again, we could also like put your opponent at high damage in the early game, which means that when you get to the GB8 turn, you have to do them less damage, and they could also have less defensive triggers, which means having that Force 2 marker makes it good. Playing the Force 2 marker also means that you could use your new stride, and your new stride could also finish the game right there. If he didn't finish the game, he still flips so many cards that he gives you the GB8. Do you make a lot of soul in this deck? Well, no, actually you don't. You do that after using your GB8, because when you get to your GB8, you actually fill your soul with a lot of cards, and then the turn after that you could go back and stride into this. As long as you have some cards in your G-Zone to flip, this is good, because he could just finish your opponent right there, and he would be better than the GB8 himself, because he draws and calls while he relies on you drawing because of Spike Bouncer or because of whatever you could use. Okay, so that's it for me. That's it for this deck profile. I thought you guys enjoyed it. I definitely enjoy playing this deck. I would say give it a shot. I mean, it's not my favorite GB8 build. It's still the without the vanilla GB8 deck is still my favorite, and I will do a deck profile on that next. So it's a deck without vanillas but still turbos the GB8. But this is the deck that I wanted to show you guys, because this is a deck that you guys will enjoy if you try it out, and that right amount of vanillas and combo pieces is something that is actually very interesting to get into. Again guys, thanks for watching. Until next time.